Welcome to the Happy Homebirth podcast, your source for positive natural childbirth stories and your community of support, education, and encouragement in all things homebirth and motherhood. Vaginal births after cesarean, are they really safe? And what about VBACs at home or outside of the hospital? Hey there, happy homebirthers, and welcome to this week's episode of the Happy Homebirth podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Fusco, and this week we are speaking with Meagan Heaton, host and founder of the VBAC Link. Meagan co-founded the VBAC Link in 2018, and although she always felt called to the baby world, she really found her love for birth in 2014 after her second C-section. Through these two birth experiences, her love and passion grew around VBAC. She wanted to help people feel supported and loved. She had two C-sections and then went on to have a VBA2C and has now supported over 300 families through their birthing journeys as a doula. Her drive is to help women like herself feel educated, supported, and empowered during their birthing time. Meagan is so incredible. We're going to hear her birth stories along with all of the wisdom she has to share for mothers who are seeking to have a vaginal birth after cesarean. So let's jump in. Please remember that the opinions of my guests may not necessarily reflect my own and vice versa. And this show is not medical advice, it's an educational tool. So continue to take empowered responsibility for your health and your family. Meagan, thank you so much for coming on the Happy Homebirth podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Oh, I am thrilled to have you and all of the amazing VBAC things that we are going to get in today. But for anyone who doesn't know you, I feel like there's probably a decent amount of crossover between our listenership. So I'm sure people are going to know who Meagan Heaton is. But for those who don't, would you mind taking a minute just to introduce yourself and your family to the listeners?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, my name's Meagan Heaton, and my company is the VBAC Link. And I am a mama of three kiddos who keep me insanely busy. They're constantly going to soccer or sports or hanging out with friends. And, I think as moms, we become like professional Uber drivers. I'm pretty sure because that's what I am. I just don't get paid for it, which is unfortunate. But so I'm Uber driving all the time. And then I have a husband who loves and supports all this work and truly didn't understand VBAC or birth or the importance of it until I really dove into it and became a doula and a podcaster on VBAC. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit more about who I am. Other than that, I just love life and love babies and love educating and empowering and helping people know, hey, listen, this might sound crazy, but it's not. It's really not. And crazy enough, there are a lot of people that I talk to that have never even heard of the term VBAC still and have no idea about the VBAC world. So I feel like it's so common and known. But then when I start talking to people, I realize it's really not known. And then when you throw in VBAC and out of hospital birth, it's like, yeah, what? It's just very alarming to people. So, and it doesn't need to be, and we're going to talk about that. But like, I think there's still a lot of people that don't know who the VBAC Link is, or even out of hospital being an option.
Yes. You know what? I think that's such a good point. I feel like sometimes I get so sucked into the community that I'm in, when I
Yes,
pop up Instagram, I see all of these beautiful home births.
right,
I see these
because it's in
lovely
our
VBACs.
algorithm.
Yes. Yes. But then, you go to a dinner function and then when you mention you gave birth outside of the hospital, they're like, you did what?
What? Yeah.
So, yes, such a good point that, yes, while it may be familiar to some of us on a larger, like on the grand scheme, it is relatively unknown. So, that's why
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is so important. And one of the things that I've noticed is people like you, where you now have this entire company focused on VBAC and empowering and encouraging these families to step
Mm-hmm.
into what they are designed to do. Oh, so often this comes from our own experiences. And
Oh yeah.
I believe that's probably your story. So, would you mind sharing your journey with us?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. There are so many people that I talk to within the doula world that are like, I'm like, "Hey, why did you become a doula?" And they're like, "Oh, listen to my experience."
Hmm.
I think that when we have experiences both positive and negative, we have this light sometimes in us and want to share it with the world and empower. And that is exactly what happened to me. So, with my first, like I said, I have three babies. I have two girls and a boy. And my first baby, I was young. I I live in Utah. The thing is, you get married young, you have a baby young. It just seems like that's a Utah thing. And maybe I'm totally wrong, but lots of my friends all got married at 19, 20, like I did. So I got married at 19 and had my first baby at 23. And to put it nicely, I did nothing.
Mm.
I did nothing really. I downloaded an app and expected that little app to educate me
Mm.
and tell me what I needed to know. And I knew that my baby was the size of an orange and that I might be experiencing nausea until the following week. That was about what I got. And podcasts were a thing, but not like a big thing. So I definitely didn't tune into any podcasts or anything like that. And so 2011 is when
Okay,
I got pregnant. So beginning of 2011, had my daughter in November 2011.
perfect.
So yeah, I just kind of like mosey poseyed along and let my app tell me what I needed to know.
Mhm.
And I did get on a couple forums of like the bump groups when your due date, whatever. And it was great, but I didn't really educate myself.
Mm.
I went to my standard OB that I was given to by my mother, who I love. I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but my mom was like, "Oh, here's my OB. This will be your OB."
Mm.
And I was like, "Cool, sounds good." Coincidentally enough, he delivered me in 1988.
Wow.
So I went to him and he was great, nice and friendly, and all was well. Had a couple comments on the size of my baby and me. I didn't handle pregnancy very well. And I was telling Lily Nichols, if anyone's ever heard of Lily Nichols, she has an amazing book and talks about
Mhm.
nutrition. I was telling her just recently how I just ate like orange chicken and Taco Bell all the time. And just I really like didn't not only did I not like give myself education, I didn't eat right.
Mm.
So I was getting really swollen, retaining a lot of water. I was growing larger in size for my little 5'3" frame. And when he said stuff like big baby, I was like, okay, cool. I don't know why, but it didn't scare me. I was like, cool, I got this. Well, then my water broke and nothing happened for a long time. I like kind of got a little bit of contraction. So it's called premature rupture of membranes, meaning my water broke. My body didn't quite like clue in that it was time to like full on go into labor. Got a little bit of contractions here and there. But what I did is I ran straight to the hospital.
Mhm.
I mean, how many people have you heard when your water breaks, you go to the hospital?
Right. What else are you supposed to do?
I mean, that's what they do in the movies. That's
Hmm.
what they do in the shows. That's all I knew. And that's what my app told me to do. So I did it because for some reason that app was like all the things I needed to do. So I ran in and I was barely dilated, and they kind of gave me some time, and I was contracting, and I was not prepared for contractions, which is something I really think people need to prepare for, whether mentally, physically, or all of it, right? I was not prepared. And so I was clinging onto the bed and I was like, do something to my husband. And he's like, epidural. But for some reason, I was anti epidural. Don't know why.
Okay.
Just wasn't. I had no education on it, but I was anti epidural. And I was like, no, no epidural. And he's like, yeah, epidural. You're not good. And so I got an epidural, and then everything happened that I didn't want to happen. It was like
Mhm.
cascade, lots of pressure, lots of talking to me, telling me that I needed to get Pitocin. And again, I wasn't even educated in these things, but I just was like, it was a lot. It was very overwhelming. I got my epidural, and my baby's heart rate did drop, finally recovered, and then they started the Pitocin. And my baby had some D cells. And after 12 hours of my water being broken and contracting, I was 3 centimeters. Yay! But that wasn't good enough. They told me it just wasn't good enough. My pelvis was too small. My body didn't know how to do it. So I needed a C section. I, I didn't know. My
Yeah.
mom had C section. I was a C section baby. So that's all she knew. She's like, oh, yeah, it's a piece of cake. You're fine. And I'm like, but I don't want a C-section. I don't want it. And everyone's like, just do it. So I went back and had my first C-section. And I just remember recovery being a blur. I was like awake sometimes and then had my baby and I don't even know what I was nursing or something. And all of a sudden I was awake and then my baby was gone. People were in my room. I was in some discomfort. I couldn't stand up straight, like just all the things. And I was like, oh, I don't love this. This is not my jam. I don't like this. And so I got pregnant again in 2013, so a couple of years later, and was like, I don't know, do I have to do that again? And I found out later in pregnancy, I did a little more research this time, and found out that I didn't have to do that. Once a cesarean really wasn't always a cesarean, which is a really common myth. And so anyway, so I was like, okay, cool, I want to do this. So I started studying for VBAC and telling my husband, I want a vaginal birth this time. I believe I can do it. And he's like, yeah, but your pelvis wasn't big enough, remember? And I'm like, yeah, but I think it is. And at 36 weeks I found out about a doula. And my husband and I went to dinner and I presented this doula idea. And it did not go very well. we were arguing and he was like, why do you want to replace me? And it wasn't like that. But I was like, I really need someone that is in our corner, and was kind of having some red flags with my provider, but didn't want to leave him because I don't know why. Why? Because I was cheating on him? No. Like, that's how I felt. Like I was in this relationship and I was going to cheat on him if I left, or break up with him and he was going to take some major offense. I don't know. It was weird. I had these things, but it's a real thing. The more I talk to our community members, the more it's really daunting to leave a provider. So anyway, needless to say, my water broke again, prompt at 38 weeks, 5 days. My husband was in Texas. So I had some time. I was like hanging out at home, doing this thing, really not contracting, but leaking a lot. I had like a full blown, like in the movies, like all over, feet prints in the carpet, but no contraction. So I was waiting for him to get home. My mom and him, once he got home, pressured me, we gotta go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital and I think my body went into fight or flight. And everything was tense and my contractions really weren't happening, and they wouldn't give me Pitocin because they said it was contraindicated for VBAC. Can't do Pitocin. Guys, that's false, just so you know. And yeah, just wouldn't help me, wouldn't give me anything. I was begging for intervention, which is not normal. People don't beg for intervention, but I was like, just give me help. And no one would give me any help. And so I went down for a repeat cesarean after kind of being bullied is the way I felt. Maybe it wasn't how it was actually happening, but that's how I perceived it. Kind of felt bullied into a repeat cesarean. It was a healing experience. I got to watch my cesarean, which isn't for everybody, but that was a big deal for me to be part of my birth, really involved. So I had that C-section and I got out of that room and I just shook my head, thought, no, I can do this differently. Still, I know I can. This didn't need to happen like this. And so I started Googling how to become a doula. And that is where it happened. In the dark OR, swollen face, nursing a baby after a cesarean, the light and the fire that ran through my body is undescribable. The only way I could try and describe it is when you're like kind of speeding and you see a cop and you're like, oh crap, and you get that like crazy adrenaline rush thinking you're gonna get pulled over. It was like that, but like 10 times fold. Like this just like made me shaky. And I just started Googling it more and more and more, and I registered to become a doula before I left the hospital with my baby, my second baby. So that's where the doula world began. And then, I just dove in head first. Like I was like, I am learning everything I can. Some other people in my community who were doulas were having VBACs. There was the ICANN chapter. There was a lot of great things happening within our providers where they were like being really supportive after not being so supportive. So that was really fun. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm totally going to do this. So I did all the research interviewed 12 doctors, which might sound ridiculous, but that's what I needed to do. I needed to find the right doctor. And I finally found the doctor that was like, yeah, I don't see any reason why you can't do this. Doesn't seem like you're really given a fair chance. There wasn't much evidence showing that your pelvis truly was too small, that your body couldn't dilate. It just seemed like no one wanted to give you the time. So I was like, yay, praise. And started care with that provider. And it was probably about 18, 19 weeks, I started getting this weird itch that I didn't know if I was where I was supposed to be. And that didn't make any sense to me because I just made the big shift to leave my provider and found a provider who's telling me all the things, but something didn't feel right. And as a doula at that point, I attended a birth on Christmas Eve. It was the most amazing birth out of the hospital. Not a C-section mama, just a mama who's had previous births, had a water birth. And it was just, it's just amazing. And I couldn't help but like just study this midwife. And I was like, oh, she's amazing. She is blowing my mind. And so I didn't want to take too much away from the birth that I was at supporting. But after I said, hey, is there any way I can come see you after the holidays? Because I want to talk to you. And started diving into home birth options for VBAC. Wow. And quickly realized that I couldn't talk about it to anybody, including some of my closest friends. And that was kind of sucky. So I went in and I interviewed this midwife, and it was like love at first sight. I don't know how to explain it. It was it. She was it. I had to have her as my midwife. And that meant I had to deliver out of the hospital because that's the only option she had. And that felt so right, despite everybody else telling me it was wrong and unsafe. And I was crazy. In fact, I was told I was a lunatic for doing that. I was selfish. I would kill my baby. I would kill myself and my baby. I mean, and I say these words and I don't want them to trigger anybody, but this is truly how people were talking to me. And when you hear that big word, that's scary. And you start questioning yourself. So I decided to go internal, suck everything in, and dive into home birth options, the safety of VBAC, the safety of home birth, and kind of pick off this little tree, my very special group of people that were safe. And I actually hid it from my family. I said, yeah, I'm planning on delivering with this OB. I'm doing dual care. Dual care with a midwife so I can have some of the natural approach while also having my OB. So they were always under the assumption that I was delivering in the hospital. So anyway, that sucked really bad. And I'd like to talk about that in a little bit of why we shouldn't have to feel that way, but why we do. But anyway, so yeah, I continued through my pregnancy. I made the switch at 24 weeks to this out of hospital midwife, had the most amazing experience, went into labor, prom. For 10% of people, it happened 3 out of 3 for me. So it happens sometimes. And I did all the things. I ate all the vitamin C, did all the things to try and improve my amniotic sac, and I still had prom. So anyway, 42 hours later, I delivered my sweet baby boy, and I actually pulled him out of me. I pulled him out on a stool on a bathroom floor with my husband behind me, wrapped behind me, my doulas and my midwife and her assistant all in front of me, just like in tears, like cheering me on, creating that true like passion and motivation and just and just carried me through pushing my baby out. I pushed my baby out in just a couple pushes, had 0 tearing, and brought him up to my chest and just screamed, I did it. And then I said, screw you, and named the doctor.
My pelvis is just fine.
Yeah, told me that I could never get a baby out of my pelvis. And my husband was like, hey. And I was like, but I mean it. So I just had the most amazing experience, just laying there holding my baby. Had kind of a weird postpartum experience, as some weird, funky, like I passed out a couple times. It was weird, but we had no like indication of why I was passing out, no bleeding issues. Still don't know. It's a mystery. But I had this beautiful experience. And at that point, I mean, VBAC for me was like, I just wanted to scream it to the rooftops,
Mhm.
to everybody. I was in a state of mind where I wanted to like smash down every provider or person that said it wasn't possible. And I don't think that was the right approach. Because I kind of sometimes came across of like a little judgmental to some of my friends, like, no, you don't have to do that, like getting all mama bear to them. But I was really passionate. And
Mhm.
so a friend and I started the VBAC link, and we were like, we need to scream from the rooftops. The VBAC is possible. Help people know their options. Also know that like VBAC isn't right for everybody, but like, how can we make cesarean birth better?
Mm.
Like, even if a cesarean is what you're choosing, the option you're choosing, or that you try for it, you go for a VBAC and you don't have a VBAC. How can we make that experience better? And so there is the VBAC link, and it's born.
Ugh,
That's the birth.
wow, that is amazing. And gosh, there are so many things that I want to talk about right now, but let's talk about the VBAC link since we just brought it up. What is it that you guys are doing at the VBAC link? What is your big goal there?
Yeah. So kind of like what I just mentioned just now, like our goal, our vision, our wholehearted, like everywhere where our heart is to make birth after cesarean better. That doesn't always look for like a VBAC, but
Mhm.
we do focus most on VBAC, right? So our goal is to educate, empower, inform, help people know their options, because I don't ever want someone to feel like I felt with my second, where they came in and they attacked me, put me in the corner, put my husband on their side against me,
Mhm.
which was not a good feeling. And I didn't know. And I still learned about VBAC at that point. I was still educating myself, but I still didn't feel fully armed to come back and say, wait. But here's what the evidence shows. Or actually, this isn't what Pitocin says with VBAC. Like, these are the stats, these are the facts. I just wasn't in that space. And we want to help people feel empowered to make the decision for themselves, to change the providers if they're realizing that the red flags are there, which we can talk about later, are red
Mhm.
flags. And red flags come with in-hospital and out-of-hospital providers. There are red flags that sometimes are blaring, sometimes are subtle. So we really just want to help this community know. And then on top of all of that, we want to help people not feel alone. Because when you are preparing for VBAC, whether it's in or out of the hospital, it can feel very alone. You can feel
Mhm.
just solo. And we don't want people to feel like that. So we created that community to kind of ride along with people and build each other up and learn from each other's experiences, because yours and mine experience might be completely different, but Jane down the street that I know might be exactly like your experience. So
Mhm.
I want to connect you guys and motivate her to have a better experience too. Just loving and supporting and educating and building people up and having that community feeling.
Mm, gosh, that is so amazing. I am curious. So, something so interesting about this, and as soon as you said it, I was like, that's so right. Like, I hear this. It's like those care providers, especially in that second scenario, really took your husband and kind of pulled them over to their side.
Sneakily.
Yeah, it's like they're preying
It's
on the
weird.
husband. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, I know that he, if we're talking in generalities, husbands want to protect, provide, take care of, fix. And in this
Yep.
situation, in the birthing situation, they can't. Like themselves, they can't give
Better
birth to
not.
this baby. They've got to sit there and watch their wife do all the stuff. So,
Mhm.
of course, if there's this other person from the outside who is an expert telling them, this is the way that it needs to be done, this will take
Mhm.
care of it, this will
Mhm.
fix it, then of
Mhm.
course he's going to be like, okay, well, yeah, like let's do that.
Yeah.
Oh man, that just gets me.
Yeah, and I still to this day hate that both my husband and I were in that experience. I hate that he was pinned against me and didn't even know it. And whether or not the provider's intent was to do that, it felt that way. It was definitely like viewed that way not even from me. Like, I tell other people about the things that this provider said to him and me, and they're like, "Oh no, that was intentional. That was like you were not listening to him, so he's gonna get you to listen to your husband
Mm-hmm.
by saying things and putting the fear of your wife's not being smart right now. Your wife is making decisions that could impact your baby's life,
Yep.
your wife's life, right? And telling me things like wake up and smell the coffee. This isn't going to happen for you. This isn't meant for you. And placing those things and talking about just those big scary words. So yes, him looking at me, he's like, just do what he says.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, you don't know, honey. You don't know. You didn't go to medical school. And I'm like, but no, I like have this. No,
Yeah.
you don't know. And we
Mm-hmm.
didn't hire the doula that I wanted to hire because,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying like a doula maybe would have impacted, but it like changed the experience, but I do think they would have impacted the experience in a different way and helped maybe him feel more comfortable and maybe see outside of this like tunnel vision of like your wife's not okay, your baby might
Mm-hmm.
not be okay. Yeah, it's not okay that people are being put in that position, and unfortunately it's happening every day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, and it
Yeah.
kind of sounds like it was this situation where you had whoa, like you decided to gain all of this knowledge and you're
Mhm.
soaking up all of this education
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
maybe he was not as involved in that
No.
process and so then
No.
he didn't know, like he didn't
No.
know the statistics and so then as soon as a
Yeah.
doctor is like, "Mm-mm, this isn't good." It's like, "Okay, well yeah, like this isn't good."
Yeah, yeah. So when we want to empower partners too, so we have a
Yeah.
course and we even have episodes on our podcast and blogs
Mhm.
for partners.
It's critical.
They might not want to dive into everything about VBAC, but it really, really is so important that your partner knows what and why you're wanting to go for what you're wanting to do. And,
Mhm.
my husband told me, he's like, I will never understand why you want to do this. Like, never. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. That's fair.
Mhm.
You don't have a uterus and aren't being cut open. Like, I don't expect you to know exactly why. I can tell you why, but I'm not going to ever portray it the way that's going to make you fully understand.
Mhm.
All that I'm asking from you is for the support and the trust.
Yeah.
I need you to trust me. I need you to support me. And
Mhm.
when I approached him and said, so, hey, you know how I want to VBAC after 2 C-sections? And he's like, yeah. I was like, well, now I want to do that out of hospital. And he's like, you what? You what? And I'm like, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. And he's like, you're going to choose the most expensive option. So he went right to money. Okay, so right to money, which is very common and
Mhm.
normal,
Sure.
especially in these days. Like,
Yeah.
finances can be hard and things are expensive.
Mhm.
But he was like, you what? That's expensive. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, I get that, honey. Money comes and goes.
Mhm.
This is going to be an experience that is going to be worth it. We're going to cherish it. I'm going to cherish it. It's really important to me. I need you to trust me. And he was like, okay. We actually did an episode for our son's birthday. I think it was last year. And like he was talking about it. He was like, I was so annoyed, like, by this, her wanting to do this. But he's like, but it was really cool. And
Mhm.
I'm glad that we did it. So
Mm.
even though he wasn't sure in the
Yep.
moment,
Yep. Wasn't sure in the moment.
wasn't sure. Yeah. Oh, I was just
Okay.
gonna say also, a lot of these partners are carrying trauma from
Mm.
past experiences that will impact the next experience. So it's also important to note to work through some trauma with your partner.
So that's it. You're talking about in terms of he's carrying trauma from birth number 1, birth number 2. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, yes. So it is so interesting though. I know this in the home birth world, when you have an experience like this, a lot of times that same spouse that on the one side was uncomfortable, like I don't think this is a good idea, but then goes into it on the other side, they're just like you were screaming like this is the best thing. Like this was so amazing. This was such an
Hmm.
empowering experience. Was
Hmm.
that what happened with you guys?
Yeah. So after the birth, he was like, that was incredible. I would never do it any other way. And I'm like, see,
Mhm.
I told you.
Mhm.
And he was
Mhm.
like, we're done having kids. But seriously, if we were having more, he's like, we would do that every single time. And I was like, "Yeah." And labor would be faster, I promise next time.
Yeah.
Well, I don't promise, but I'm pretty sure that it
Pretty sure.
would. Because when I was a first time mama going in with lots of mental trauma and physical trauma, that I still thought I had worked through, but hadn't, right? So had to work through my labor. But he was like, "That was incredible. I'm so glad we had the doulas. I'm so glad I could take a nap and grab me a quick bite of lunch so I could be refreshed and ready for when this baby came out." He loved seeing it, actually. He loved seeing me pull our baby out, and he was up here by my neck, but he was like, "That was the most incredible thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, you got to experience birth in a whole different way." Because before we had our baby, he said these words to me: "I don't understand why we don't just go unzip you." That's what he said. To like really understand the disconnect that he had, like that's how I can describe it. So disconnected.
Yeah, and then this situation, this experience allowed the two of you to experience birth together in this whole brand new way,
Yes.
and then it becomes something totally different. It's not just,
Yeah.
quote, "unzipping." It's like, "Oh my goodness, you're bringing forth life." Like, there's so
Yes.
much to it.
Yes. I know there's an image that a doula, my friend and doula took of us, and it's just a casual image, me sitting on the back of the toilet, like straddling it backwards, him like just like holding a rag on me and just like being with me. And that picture, I cherish it so much because it was in that moment that I remember this shift in my labor and this shift of safety. I've always felt safe, but there was this weird thing about him coming over, and I'm like, "Oh, he's with me. We're together." And it was really from there on, like progression started happening. And I had my baby not long after that. It just, I needed that support that I didn't have in the past births. The partner is very undervalued, in my opinion, of the power that they have through their support and education.
Absolutely. And the beginning, before pregnancy and especially in pregnancy and being able to
Mhm.
work together as a unit to come and be ready for such a transformative experience. Wow.
Yes.
What an incredible
Yes.
opportunity when we are able to seize that and work together.
Yeah.
Now, Megan, in your story, when you were talking about how everything unfolded, one of the things that you mentioned was this idea of the stigma that came with choosing to have a VBAC. So could you dive
Mhm.
into that a little deeper for us?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to VBAC in general, no matter where you're giving birth,
Mhm.
there's a stigma.
Right.
People hear, "Wait, you've had a C-section and you're wanting to have a vaginal birth? Yeah, okay, good luck." Or, "Isn't that like super dangerous?" Like,
Mhm.
have you ever heard that? Where it's just like, "Oh, VBAC is just so dangerous." When in reality, like 0.4 to 1% of people will actually have a problem. And
Mhm.
even when that percentage of problems happen, it's very rarely where it's like catastrophic or like so impactful that we have bad things happening.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like it's very little. It's
Mhm.
very, very little. If we look at the things that we do from everyday life, like I'm not going to say like, "Oh, how do you ever get in your car? I can't believe you get in your car.
Right.
You should walk everywhere." We have risk with everything. And for me, that 0.4 to 1%, which, and again, the more cesareans you have, it does increase a little bit, but that was a acceptable risk for
Mhm.
me. So the stigma around like, "Oh, it's so dangerous," or, "Oh, you're gonna do something to your baby," or, "How selfish are you?" Like, I hated it. I hate it now. I see people saying it and I'm just like, "No, stop. Educate yourself.
Mhm.
Have an educated discussion." So if you're one of those that are little concerned, that's okay that you're concerned because you're hearing big, scary things. There is that stigma, that negative context around having a baby when someone having a VBAC, all they are is someone going in to have a VBAC. They're not a ticking time bomb, but we act like it. Like truly, we had a provider on one of our podcasts say, "You are a ticking time bomb." What? How is that going to make you feel? Horrible? Terrified? No, you're just a mom wanting to go in and have a baby vaginally. That is how your body was physically made to do. Our bodies are incredible. Our uteruses and our cervix, oh my gosh, mind blowing.
Mhm.
We are so powerful and we have the most powerful thing to bring human life into this world and birth them vaginally, that's normal. It's normal
Mhm.
to want a vaginal birth. It really is. So I had to hide it because that stigma of things in that negative world kept coming at me, like pecking at me like annoying birds.
Gosh, that sounds so difficult. And one of the things that I think about when we're talking about risk is people are so quick to discuss the risk of a VBAC, the risk of an out of hospital birth, but we don't really ever discuss the risk of a cesarean.
Cesarean,
Like,
or repeat cesareans.
right.
Like, people don't understand that, and this is not, I don't want to say this to scare anybody, okay?
No,
This
absolutely
is
not.
just educational purposes. Like, people don't know that every repeat cesarean increases your chances of hemorrhage, increases your risk of infertility issues. We've got scar tissue adhesions, bladder issues, bleeding. We don't talk about the risk of issues to baby in a cesarean. There are risks to a baby in a cesarean. Babies are being nicked and cut. Bladders are being cut and damaged for life. Yes, they recover, but there's damage there, right? And hysterectomy issues, like we're not talking about those risks and the long term and how long a cesarean scar, even if it's a very straightforward, easy peasy, beautiful cesarean, it can impact you for the rest of your life. And we're not talking about that. We are just focusing on that 1% or less of really big, scary things when most of the time it's not happening. And then when it comes to out of hospital and birthing with VBAC, then the stigma is even worse. I would love to know your point of view on birthing out of hospital stigma, just in general. Like, people automatically go to where? What, like the three top things that you hear
Like the
when,
questions of what will happen.
or yeah, like what people think about it.
Oh gosh, that well, just that it's horribly dangerous, that it's
Mhm.
so risky, that the person like who would even provide this service? That's the question. Like,
Yeah, they
n-
should go to jail. That's
yeah,
what I was told. Your midwife should go to jail.
and you're all gonna die. Like that's the
Yeah,
big. You're all gonna die. You're all just. It's
fear
that's what's gonna
mongering.
happen for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we just, there's been so much fear mongering around out of hospital birth and VBAC, especially in VBAC out of
Hmm.
hospital, that we know nothing more than negativity. When in
Hmm.
reality, you could say something like, 95% of those who go for a VBAC will not rupture.
Hmm. Hmm. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and yeah, and that's even lower. Like, if that's like multiple cesareans and all these things
Hmm.
and classical start, like that's like increasing those
Hmm.
risks, the higher increasing risks. Like, your odds are pretty dang amazing.
Hmm.
90, 98, and 99, like that's pretty good odds
Yeah.
to not have an issue, but to have a beautiful experience.
Mhm. Now I'm curious. So you attempted a VBAC in the hospital, and then
Yeah.
you had this out of hospital birth experience where
Mhm.
you had this successful VBAC. What do you think about that? What does that say to you in terms of choosing to
Mhm.
attempt this in the hospital versus attempting it outside of the
Mhm.
hospital?
Oh, I love that you brought that up because even a lot of people said, like, oh, do you think you would have had your VBAC after two C-sections if you were in the hospital?
Hmm.
So, with my VBAC, my first VBAC or TOLAC, right, trial of labor after cesarean that ended in a repeat cesarean, I truly believe that if I was more educated, had the support, and was out of hospital, or had a better supportive provider, I would have had a vaginal birth. So, looking at my VBAC, and let me tell you why. So, with number two, they were scared of me. They were scared to touch me, scared to give me anything. They were truly scared of birth. They didn't trust birth.
Hmm.
Now, hospitals all over trust birth. I don't want to say like if hospitals don't trust birth, but the team that I had specifically did not trust birth or my ability to give birth. So they just gave up on me, right? My out of hospital team, it was a long birth. It was a really long birth. And we even did an NST along the way just to make sure everything was going okay. Because my body didn't want to dilate. And that's my style, apparently. But having that team, having the education, having the support, continue to back me up the whole way, empowered me and helped me feel safe. I believe that if I was in a hospital with my third birth, any hospital, even with my supportive provider that I left at 24 weeks, I do not believe I would have had a vaginal birth. I really do not, with my specific situation. I believe after so many hours of having your water broken, I think it was like 36 total that my water was like broken, but I was contracting a little bit before. They would have called it like I wasn't dilating. I was just hanging out, not moving, you know? Um, Getting risk of infection, higher risk. My baby did have a couple little D cells. He was a posterior baby. So that was a big part of things. We had to work to get him anterior. And once he was anterior, he just boom, cervix melted away and came out. And he came out. But I do believe that I would have been pressured or probably would have given in because I was so tired at that point too. And I would have had a repeat cesarean for my third.
So, I mean, that really does kind of it just shows that where we choose to give birth can really have an impact on what it is that we're
Mm-hmm.
seeking to do. So when we're seeking a VBAC, it is just so deeply important whether you choose to give birth inside of the hospital or outside of the hospital, choosing the
Yeah.
correct care providers, vetting those care providers, making sure that they're right for you is massive. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on how do you know? You know, what are those little red flags or big red flags? How would you from now on share to someone this is how we need to vet our care provider?
Okay, so starting right off the bat, ask open-ended questions. If you ask a yes or no questions, anyone can be like, "Yeah, totally." Because they're going to get a sense of what you want. If you're asking these questions, it's probably because you want to be back, right? So asking open-ended questions, and you guys, we talk about our mama's intuition, or our intuition a ton on my podcast on the VBAC link. I don't really believe in it. Our intuition is everything. Like we got to tune into that. So tune into what your response is to their answer. So, and when I say open-ended questions, I mean things like, "Hey, I am curious. What are your thoughts on VBAC?" Not even starting, "I want to VBAC. What are your thoughts?" What are your thoughts on VBAC? If a provider's like, "Oh, I really encourage it. It's wonderful. I would love to look at your history and we can go over things and go over the pros and cons of both vaginal birth and repeat cesarean. We can go over some things that maybe I need to be watching and you need to be watching or whatever," and just like opens up this conversation, then I would probably think, "Okay, let's continue this." But if they're like, "Yeah, I mean, VBACs are fine, but I have a lot of restrictions. Like you can't go over 39 weeks. You can't, be induced, or you have to be induced." That's another thing. It's everyone's different. No epidural, or you have to have an epidural. And they're all of a sudden putting all these like, you must, you can't. That all right along, that just right to me saves you an entire half hour of conversation with a provider that's probably not your provider, right? So, putting restrictions. So, asking things like, how do you, as a provider, support VBAC? Not what do you think, how do you support VBAC? Because if they're like, "Yeah, well, I support it, but I like to kind of manage things. And so I need to like have this, and that." Okay, we got another red flag here. And again, two huge red flags are enough to turn away and go run. With out of hospital, I think vetting your provider is also really important because you need to say, like, "Okay, what are your thoughts on VBAC? How many VBACs have you attended? How do you support VBACs out of the hospital if if my body's not progressing, if my baby's in a weird, funky position? What if I have bleeding after birth? How do you handle that? How many hours am I in labor for will you support me as a VBAC before transferring me? Do you have a backup plan? Do you work with an OB in hospital or a provider in hospital for a transfer plan if for needed? What would be your reasons for transfer? Right? So lots of questions and tuning in to like how those answers make you feel. If you've got a provider that's like, "Yeah, you can birth in any position that makes you feel comfortable," great. That would make me feel good. If you have a provider that's like, "Well, yeah, but I have like a bad back." So if it's not comfortable for me, then I don't probably not gonna work. And I say that, and we might all laugh. It actually happened to a client of mine.
Yikes.
It was really bad. And she ended up not switching. Actually, I think she did switch at this one. She didn't switch for a while, and he started doing other pressures and making it about himself. And it's like, wait, who's pushing the baby out
Mm-hmm.
here? So really vetting those questions and answering, tuning into their answer and figuring out how their answer felt to you. If you're feeling kind of icky, you should probably review switching.
Absolutely. Oh, that is, I mean, goodness gracious, mother's intuition is just the everything. It's at the
Yeah.
center of everything.
Yeah. It really is. I feel like so often though, I don't know if it's that we're conditioned or what, but there's so many times where again, I don't know the right word, we ignore it because we think we have to ignore it because we are below. We don't have the education. We don't have the experience. We're down here. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does.
But when we're actually up here, right
Exactly.
there.
Exactly. That's all it takes is finally figuring out, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Who in this situation is going to care the very most about myself, about my baby,
Mhm.
about my experience? Who is it?
Yes.
Is it
Me.
me or is it the doctor? Oh, I think it's me. I think it's
Yeah,
me.
pretty sure. Pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah. But for some reason, we discredit ourselves.
Mhm.
And I don't love it. I would love to see us empower ourselves and feel more qualified
Mhm.
to make decisions that might be hard to make or feel big, but feel right. Because for me, with my second, it didn't feel right to walk down and have a second C-section. That's not what felt right. I felt like that's what I should do. I asked for 1 hour. My contractions never even came. I never felt a contraction after that because my body was in this freeze mode. But I wish I would have followed my heart then and been like, I hear what you're saying. And honey, I hear what he's saying to you. I need you to trust me again. Like I said with my third, I need you to trust me.
Mhm.
Please trust me. I am not going to put our baby's life in danger. I'm really not. I'm not going to put my life in danger. I want a healthy mom, a healthy baby, no matter what, of course. And, I hate that term actually, healthy mom, healthy baby. It's not that it's bad, but it just discredits a lot. And I
Mhm.
don't love it. It's like, well, but what about a good experience? And duh,
Exactly.
what mom doesn't want a healthy mom and healthy baby? That is a given. So let's talk more about the grand scheme of things and how birth can impact us long term. We have a lot of moms that experience trauma, and it maybe was avoidable. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think that's based off of a location or a provider. And that's, again, why vetting your provider is so, so, so important. There's a study, I think it was done in 2021, that talks about planned home birth after cesarean being associated with a significant decrease in the odds of having a cesarean by 39%. And they talk about how the home in itself gives you a more familiar, cozy, warm, safe feeling. And I truly believe that wherever you decide to birth, you need to have those feelings, those safe, cozy, warm, comfortable feelings, because that in itself is going to help you birth.
Mhm. That's a critical piece that you just said there, Megan. Just the idea of the the very clear statistical benefit of
Mm-hmm.
if you are seeking to have a vaginal birth after cesarean,
Yeah.
considering birthing outside of the hospital. And
Mm-hmm.
something that I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact specific percentage, so you may know this, but I know it's in the 80s. Like 80 something percent of moms who attempt to have a VBAC outside of the
Yeah.
hospital are successful in having a VBAC. Those are wild statistics to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
giving birth at home, usually it's around 90%, right? 90% of moms. So that is so, that's negligible, the difference between someone who's not
Mm-hmm.
had a cesarean and someone who has had a cesarean
Has.
giving birth
Yeah.
successfully.
Yeah. And again, I think that comes down to who your provider is
Mhm.
and who's building you up and not shooting you down. Like, if your provider doesn't have confidence from you in the beginning, like, you're being set up to not, I don't want to say to fail, but you're being set up.
Yeah. You're swimming upstream.
Yeah, you're against the current, and that's not a place to be when you're in your most vulnerable state. Whether you're
Mhm.
unmedicated or medicated, like, you are so vulnerable in
Mhm.
birth, so vulnerable, and you need to feel that support. And I truly believe that when it came to my out of hospital experience, I got every single one of those box checked. And I was so grateful for them. Even with like a weird recovery thing, like, I like almost overlook it because the
Mm.
positive just outweighed everything else.
Wow. Okay, so I'm curious to hear. Obviously, this is your life. This is your passion and you've had such a beautiful experience yourself. You're working with these families who are seeking to have this vaginal birth after
Mhm,
cesarean. Obviously specifically asking about out of hospital, but really either. When a mother is preparing for a VBAC, as opposed
mhm,
to a mother who maybe has never experienced a VBAC,
mhm,
what do you think the
mhm.
differences are in terms of preparation and maybe how they can focus on preparing?
Yeah, so I think some of the differences are being comfortable in a space that doesn't have an OR down the hall.
Mm.
It's weird, but I have a lot of clients get hung up with that. Like, well, what if it's an emergency? What if there's an emergency? What if there's an emergency? It's like, well, usually when there's an emergency, there are a lot of things building up to make it not be an emergency that you tune
Mhm.
into. So diving into for out of hospital, I mean, this applies for both, but really out of hospital, because I think that we can get in our head because one, the stigma, the negativity around everything, and we can start questioning because we're vulnerable. So tuning into your intuition, number one. Number two, knowing education, knowing those signs, knowing the signs of, are things going a different route, right? Being open to making change. And sometimes that means change within the in the home, or sometimes that means change of transfer. Having that plan of backup, because a lot of the people that are birthing in the hospital, they don't have plans, they don't think about the risk because they rely on the staff to know them. I think that we should know, no matter what, hospital or not. But really, when we're laboring at home, sometimes we labor at home for hours and hours and hours before our team gets there because we're there and they're joining us in a more active state of labor, right? So knowing the signs of uterine rupture, knowing the symptoms, the signs and the symptoms, okay? Like, we want to know, tuning in. We want to have the transfer plan, have all of that figured out, tuning into intuition, and like gearing our mind towards the end goal of vaginal birth at home,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
not discrediting the other things. Does
Oh,
that make
that's so good.
sense?
Yeah,
And not letting
absolutely.
them hover over us, the what ifs, and the every like, oh my gosh, I just felt a twinge in my cesarean scar. Am I rupturing?
Ooh, yeah.
And then we spiral
Yeah.
when we might just have a baby coming down and putting pressure along there, and we're having scar tissue release right there because our baby's coming down and out and coming out vaginally, so sometimes we can overthink it. So getting the information, being armed with that information, but then not letting it consume us too.
Yes. See, I think and that's where I tend to go. What I've noticed with some of my students who are preparing for a home birth after having a cesarean, there is an additional layer of fear that sometimes
Yes.
has to be broken down in that prenatal time, really
Yes.
thinking through, hey, what is it that I'm scared of? Like, what are
Mm-hmm.
the things that I'm truly fearful of? And writing that all out. And there are so many ways to release fear, but really coming to terms with the truth
Yeah.
of how I feel,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
concerns and the fears, and then figuring out how am I going to work with this? How am I going to
Yeah.
work with this fear? How am I going to release this fear and really allow myself to go into this
Yes.
experience?
So we actually talk a lot about that. So there's a lot of like prep as far as educationally, right? But then we have physical prep and we have
Mhm.
emotional prep.
Right.
And then we have nutritional prep. There's a lot of
Mhm.
prepping. There's a lot
Mhm.
of prepping. But we have that in our course too, where we have a full fear release clearing
Mhm.
section. And sometimes there's multiple fears that we have to release and clear, but we
Yeah.
have to tune into what they really are, right? And like you said, like, you know, what are we scared of now? What happened to us before that might make us scared? What has someone said that's making us scared? How do we tune
Mm.
into that? Can we just get the information and then that alone gets that fear away? Or is there more? Is it deeper? And we have to really release that. I had a client years ago. She's actually on the podcast sharing her VBAC story, but she had some hangups
Mm.
and during her labor, and we had to do a fear release during labor. And
Wow.
we wrote all of her fears down. And I said, any fear that's popping in your mind that might be stopping this labor, write it down. And then we went through them, we processed them. And she was like, okay, I understand that. Oh, that makes me feel better. I'm like, okay, now burn it. So we burned it. We burned the paper in her living room in a pot. We had a pot. We had a cup of water there just in case. But we burned it. Every time she watched that little paper burn, a contraction would hit.
Wow.
And then we'd work through the next one. And she'd be like, okay, I'm letting it go. I'm letting this go. This is no longer a fear. Burn it. Boom, contraction. And we had a vaginal birth. So it's so important. So I love that you brought that up. Like there's so much education, but then like fear clearing, releasing, working through those, because that's really important. And it's crazy how much our brain can hang up
Mhm.
our labors.
Gosh, and having your mind actually changes the way that things
Yes,
unfold. And
believing it.
gosh, I think that very physical, that tangible way of
Mhm.
burning up the fears, it's
Yeah.
so powerful because you're seeing it happen in front of your eyes. It's like,
Mhm.
yes, all right, I'm seeing this. This is a visual experience. It's tangible. I'm watching this. Yep, I'm releasing this. And then once that mind changes, once we've rewritten that and it's like, okay, that is no longer in this process, it
Yep.
makes sense that then she would have a contraction. It's like
Yeah.
our form responds to our mind. Like they're just, it's so responsive.
Yes.
That is so cool, Megan. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. 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 And it kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, like that impacts our partners too. And
Hmm.
sometimes as laboring women, we are just this is just sometimes our style. We like to make sure everyone's okay. And if our partners aren't okay or we're noticing that they're not doing okay, we're gonna like want to make them okay too, or we're gonna stall ourselves. And so I think processing with your partner and having your partner feel comfortable and open, which again I feel like happens so much in the home. When they're in their own space, they feel comfortable to voice their feelings, their uncomfortableness is what I want to say. Is that really a word? I don't know if that's
I
really
think
a
it's
word.
perfect. It's totally good.
But that, them being uncomfortable, they're willing to voice that. But when they're in a hospital and there's like beeping noises and it's cold and there's like really not a comfortable spot to even sit, and you're hooked up and they're seeing you hooked up to a million monitors and IVs going through and all these things, they might not feel as empowered or safe to talk about their fears, right? And
Absolutely.
even though they might not think their energy is rubbing off on us, it can. It really, really can. And I just think that that's something very special and unique about a home birth and what the home offers. There's a lot of people that say, like, oh, doulas only support home births, right? And I'm like, no, actually, most people deliver it out of hospital. It's a treat and an honor. I love having, support at home, but it's true. Like, there's something very, very special and unique about a home birth.
Wow, Megan, that was so helpful. What a great informative idea. Just everything that you've just shared has been so great. And
Mm.
as we're coming to the end here, I want to ask you because I know you are just a wealth of knowledge. Are there any final tips, any final tidbits that you would like to share with the listeners just in terms of anything that they can do to help encourage a successful VBAC?
Yes. So, education again, we
Hmm.
talked about it. Really, and knowing that your educational source is fact and true and honest. And I mean, the other day we Googled something that someone said, trying to find where she found this source. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's that easy to find, like blatantly, like obvious lies, but it's easy to believe. So, educate yourselves. because education is power, and make sure that it's a trusted source, right? And in addition to educating yourself, I think even maybe first, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe you can VBAC or you can give birth out of the hospital, you can have all the team you want. They can believe in you, but if you don't believe in yourself, that's going to be, impacting your birth and your delivery. So believing in yourself, again, processing, focusing on your nutrition. I believe in nutrition so much, fueling our bodies, making us happy, strong. But really, I mean, again, vetting your provider, trying to think, really all the things we've talked about today.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and all the things that are at the VBAC link, right? Like, this is what
Yeah,
you
come see
do.
us over here. Yeah, come see us at
Please.
the VBAC link. We talk about a lot of things, and like we even go down to like items that can help you through your childbirth or through your VBAC. Things like I mean, literally just like items that you can have in your toolbox for home births or or hospital births. But yeah, creating a safe space, a safe environment, trusting your ability. You guys, we're amazing. We're so amazing. You are amazing. Our like slogan, maybe I don't know if it's a slogan, is women of strength. We tell them you are a woman of strength, and I wholeheartedly believe that. We are women of strength. We have so much strength and knowledge, and like I said earlier, we can sometimes maybe like shove it under the rug a little bit, but you are incredible. Your body's incredible. Your babies, they know what to do. They know what to do. And sometimes they take a path that we didn't expect and we don't understand. And that can be frustrating, right? But you can do it. You can do
Oh
it.
my goodness. Well, you are incredible, Meagan. You are for sure a woman of strength.
Oh,
This has been such
thanks.
a joy. I am so thrilled to have been able to have you. Meagan, thank you so much for coming on the Happy Home Birth podcast.
Thank you.
How helpful was that? So many mothers who find this podcast are in the exact same position that Meagan was between her second and third birth. They've had the cesarean or some other type of birth experience that they feel wasn't ideal, and now they're looking for a new way. Stories like Megan's provide so much support for those of you who need to hear just how other mothers navigated their birth. And as we head into this week's episode roundup, here are a few little thoughts that I'm having. Number one, partner support is so crucial. Megan shares about this on her own platform, and she's got the story to prove just how important this piece is. While Megan had gained a good amount of education between her first and second birth, her husband was still of the mindset that their doctors truly were the experts and he trusted what they said. However, when she was able to work with him more on the subjects in their third pregnancy, he was willing to support Megan in her desire to give birth outside of the hospital, even if he didn't fully understand it himself. Now he's a believer, just like so many other home birth dads. Next, I love how Megan mentioned the importance of vetting your care provider, both inside and outside of the hospital. Sometimes we fall into the mental trap that home birth midwife equals perfect care provider for me. And honestly, that's just not the case. There are lots of midwives in my area, and many of them practice quite differently from one another. In fact, many of them are unwilling to take on VBAC clients. So, seeking a care provider who knows your story and feels confident working with you and gives you peace, wow, that is critical in terms of having a successful VBAC. And finally, I want to leave you with this reminder: it can be different this time. It can be different than before. Maybe you've had one, two, three other experiences that all ended in a cesarean, or that whatever happened ended in a way that felt disempowering to you. I want you to remember that this birth is different. The outcome can be different. And no matter what, your perspective can always be different. Change is possible. And if you're looking for the tools to help you get across the finish line, to help you change your perspective, and to help you change what you're expecting with your outcomes, make sure you check out Happy Home Birth Academy. As always, the code podcast will get you 10% off, and the link is in the show notes. Okay, my friends, be sure to go subscribe to the VBAC link to continue on the educational journey with Megan and her guests. And that's all I've got for you for today. I'll see you back here next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode.
Are you looking to extend the home birth support, encouragement, and education? Join us in our Facebook group, Happy Home Birth Podcast Community, and check us out on Instagram at Happy Home Birth Podcast.